and heavy. They're just kind of pulling and creating this friction between other masses. In your example, I simply do not see that. If you want to do that, if you want to have this kind of effect, you need to study this a little bit more. So let me see if I can illustrate it. I'm not going to be trying to capture that. I just want to illustrate what I mean by having to kind of big masses. Right here, it's a bit confusing. I'm not sure what is what in here. I can see a shape in here. I can see a shape in there, and I'm trying to compare with what I have, or what I see here. It's a bit difficult to see because there's just so much skin. But I guess this is what you were trying to capture, is this shape. Right, and I guess a little bit of a shape in here, which is not, I would say, is not a successful thing that you've done, but that's okay. I mean, if you want to capture the skin, right, if you want it to look this way, just be mindful that there is a thong in here, right? So that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of this kind of effect, right? Without that, the transition would have been much smoother, right? Without much of anything in this section, for example, which would leave you with just this shape in here, right? Which is just skin kind of hanging. So this is what you were trying to indicate. But I would say he's not the kind of, at least the look of the character doesn't really provide for this kind of effect. Here we need to be kind of very careful with what we're observing, because we should be able to see this massive kind of shape. I'm not talking about muscles, I'm talking about visually what we see in terms of the kind of weight of the body, right? So for me, the shape is somewhere there, right? It's something massive, and then as well as this shape, a whole kind of section in here, and this is where kind of the main mass is, right? Everything else is just kind of to kind of hold it, to maybe bend it, those muscles in here, but in there is just almost nothing, right? So there's for me at least, there is a very clear separation between those shapes. Whereas if I look at your model, yes, even though we can kind of see by the silhouette that there is something similar happening, right? There's supposed to be some kind of a shape in here as well, but I simply do not see it. To me, everything here is kind of flattish, right? It's just in terms of the mass in here compared to the mass in here, it's kind of the same. It's just not separation. So for that reason, there is no point in making any folds in here, because the folds, they indicate exactly that, right? It's just kind of separation between two masses, right? Something that is almost like so big and heavy, they're just kind of pulling and creating this friction between other masses. In your example, I simply do not see that. If you want to do that, if you want to have this kind of effect, you need to study this a little bit more. So let me see if I can illustrate it. I'm not going to be trying to capture that. I just want to illustrate what I mean by having to kind of big masses. And so this is what the idea is, right? let's see where I've begun with this. Okay, so let me duplicate that. So this is where it was, right? This is fine. I'm not saying that this is wrong, right? The reason why I did this whole process is not to indicate that there was something wrong with this. I'm just saying that if you want to create those kind of not shapes, but this effect of the skin being in here, or some kind of a mass being here, definitely in this area, I can see that you were trying to create some kind of a fold. I don't think that you were trying to create the muscle, because the muscle is just not doing anything of this kind of nature, right? The muscle ends more or less here, and you can see it on the scan. So I'm guessing you were trying to indicate something else, right? You were trying to indicate this transition of the skin between the muscles. So if you have your model done in this way, you don't need to do that, right? We can find a reference where this is not, let's say, muscle back, a muscular back. Muscular back. Let's see. So as you can see, there is not much going on in here, right? We can see the columns, those shapes. This is something that we did. This is a little bit confusing, but we can trace it by looking at those muscles in here, meaning that the scapula is going to be somewhere here, right? The other part is going to be somewhere here, because we can see the transition, right? So it's somewhere in here. So this is where it is, right? Because also the trapezius ends in here kind of very, very sharply, right? This is kind of deeper, kind of more shallow, and here everything is almost flat, right? But look at what's happening in here. This is the area that we are trying to capture, right? So this shape, this is where the kind of the muscle, the back muscle goes. That's fine. But all of this area in here, this is actually fat, right? This kind of pouch is a fat. It's just something that is normal, something that you will learn from Scott Eaton as well. I personally haven't done any research, but I trust his judgment. I trust his expertise. This is where some fat is being stored, and even if somebody is very lean, this fat is still going to be there, right? So there is no reason for having any kind of skin folds in here, because his back, this whole kind of section in here, doesn't evoke this feeling of heaviness, right? It's muscular, yeah, it's kind of wide. This is good, right? So kind of the shoulders and the hips, this is very kind of wide, so he has somewhat of a powerful look, but there is no bigger separation between the kind of weight, right, of masses. There's just nothing in here. There's just one big thing that is kind of flattish looking. Here it's almost flattish looking, so there's no point in making any transition. The transition here would be this end of the muscle, the columns like that, and here you can just fill in this whole section with just a kind of roundish shape like that. We can see it, the kind of the skin, yes, it kind of goes like that, but this is also the this is the muscles, right? The kind of the separation between the fibers as well going in here, but this is just a shape, right? So if we go back to what you have in here, the kind of solution would be to integrate the columns just a little bit better, right? So instead of them being, I keep repeating this, but being just one kind of separate shape like that, lying on top of the body, you just integrate it a little bit better with everything else, right? If you want to indicate the fibers, you can do that, just kind of individually position some lines like that, kind of smooth out a lot, smooth out this, because this is just ugly looking now. right? So maybe something like that, very quickly, roughly done. But here you would just fill in this whole section with that fat, right? Again, you don't need to know that this is fat. It's interesting. It's definitely valuable for sure. But if you kind of pay attention and don't just lock yourself into one particular scan, right? You need to know, you need to have a lot of data in your mind, so you can do analysis, right? You can do comparative analysis to understand what is what, or what kind of, not technique, but what kind of look, what kind of element to add, right? For that, to do that, you need to always compare different things, right? Not just focus on one particular instance of a human body. So this is what I would personally do if I was going for this kind of a look that you're making, right? So I would just literally fill the sections with mass. Continue the columns this way. Kind of this is where the skin is being indicated, right? But the transition is somewhat flattish in here. Yes, we do see the separation between the columns, but this is more or less gradual kind of a continuation, and I would just be careful with this shape, right? And then I would just define more this muscle, right? Because right now it's all the mass of the muscle is being in here, whereas it's actually kind of, well, it's actually lying on top of the pelvis like that, right? And so I would work on that, kind of integrate that a little bit more.